What is up, Hawk fans? I hope you guys are doing well. It is early Monday, and hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your guys' week. I know Mondays can be kind of bittersweet. There's such newness, such freshness to the day, but you also know that it's the very beginning of the work week. Rather than, Friday or Thursday. Realistically, once you get past Wednesday, you're pretty much in good shape. Half of the week is done, and there's some positivity attached to that. But anyways, I hope you guys had a good weekend. I hope you guys are having a good start to your week regardless. Hopefully this news is going to brighten your day. I already made the announcement, and I already made the video just in case I didn't have enough time to make this video. And that, of course, is that Ben McCollum is officially the next Iowa men's basketball head coach. Yesterday I made the video. I took a risk. I risked it. David Eicholt and Sean Bach had published an article saying that Iowa was finalizing talks with Ben McCollum, but there was no formal announcement. There wasn't, anybody from Iowa or Ben McCollum's side that had officially made the announcement that this was true. And so in the video, I did say that this is, at this point, looking like it's going to be the case, but it has not been confirmed yet. So I did make those disclaimers, and I was starting to get a little worried because there was an article that was dropped from Sports Illustrated Hawkeye contributor, which is not very good. They basically just take articles from other articles and repost them. But the article, a few hours after David Eicholt and Sean Bach had dropped their article, said the Iowa men's basketball coaching search takes weird twist or has a weird turn. It was titled something like that. And I don't remember exactly what it said, but it basically was saying that Ben had not been announced as the head coach yet, and it was pointing that out. I think it maybe mentioned that they were struggling to come to terms. I found it here. Iowa Hawkeyes coach search takes odd turn. That's essentially what it says. And it talks about how David Eicholt and Sean Bach had made the announcements. And then said, while Iowa is still pursuing McCullum, who is currently serving as Iowa or head coach of the Drake Bulldogs, Tommy Birch of the Des Moines Register has revealed that the school is not that close to hiring him. And that was after, like I said, the David Eicholt and Sean Bach article. So I was getting a little concerned. I wasn't worried because I did put disclaimers in my video, and I kind of had the thought and hope that Iowa fans would be good faith. I was not the one that made the report. I was merely making the video due to time constraints and just trying to get it out there. But I was totally transparent in saying that it was not a done deal, and that Iowa fans should understand that. And I was thinking to myself, how would I make the video if it turned out to not be true? I would basically have to come on and rip David Eicholt and Sean Bach a new one and say that I'm never going to trust them ever again when it comes to their reports. But I digress. It's a done deal. He is going to be Iowa's next men's basketball coach, and I want to use this time to mainly talk about what this means, because yesterday it was a very encompassing video, but I mostly compared Ben to Darian DeVries, aka Darren DeVries. Man, some of these people's names are just ridiculous. But and I talked about kind of who I would prefer and what I think Iowa is getting with Ben McCollum, the advantages to landing him. But I want to talk about today what next steps he has to take immediately and kind of what this means for Iowa men's basketball. So let me start here. This immediately instills hope and positivity into the Iowa faithful. Now, obviously, this needs to be accompanied by results on the court, but Iowa fans immediately have some newfound excitement and newfound interest in the Iowa men's basketball program. Ben McCullum is a young coach, comparatively, and he has obviously had a lot of recent success. I detailed the success that he has had primarily at the Division II level, but he is a really good coach. And I recently saw a video from the guy that used to be on ESPN. He's a former. He went to the University of Iowa, I believe. He's a big Iowa Hawkeye fan. And he has a YouTube channel. I forget his name, though. He definitely is a mixed bag as far as how the Iowa Hawkeye fans view him. But nonetheless, he used to be on ESPN, so I think you guys know who I'm talking about. And he said that from his resources and sources, that Ben McCollum is the guy, and he listed 2 successful Division I coaches. Ben McCollum is the guy that they call when they have questions, meaning he is a well-respected, highly knowledgeable coach that people go to even in the coaching ranks. And that's good. I think that says a lot about him, if it is indeed true. Now, it's obviously secondhand knowledge, but if it is true, I do think that it says a lot. But this immediately instills hope in the Iowa fan base. The bottom line with Fran McCaffery is, even if he was the winningest coach in Iowa men's basketball history, there was a lot of animosity that was built up, with his sons, with him. His sons kind of took some passive-aggressive shots at the University of Iowa. His youngest son spurned Iowa. And in doing so, he said, essentially, why would he want to play for the University of Iowa after he saw how his brothers were treated by Iowa Hawkeye fans? And it's like, okay, you're definitely entitled to your opinion, and I do want to give some grace given the fact that he was a high schooler at the time. But I do think that it says a lot about possibly how the Fran McCaffery family was feeling about the University of Iowa towards the end. I do think that they were starting to have a negative feeling towards the University of Iowa and towards the fan base towards the end. And quite frankly, the feeling was mutual between the fans and the McCaffery family. And then, of course, Patrick McCaffery decided to transfer and go to Butler, even though he didn't really have to. Now, that decision made a little bit more sense considering he had played at Iowa for multiple years, and he was kind of being lifted out of the rotation, and he kind of wanted a fresh start and go to a place that he'd have more of an opportunity to play an enhanced role. Because the thing is, guys, at the Division I level, the talent level is so high that players are chosen much more defined, much more as far as carving out roles go, because there's only one basketball, there's only so many possessions, and so players are much more specialized. They're chosen for being really good at this specific thing, or this specific thing. Now, obviously, coaches look for well-rounded players, but in the end, when it comes to any particular team, there's going to be carved out roles, and because there's only one basketball and there's only so many possessions. So that was more understandable. But the way that the youngest son spoke about the University of Iowa, I think said a lot about how the family viewed the University of Iowa, because you juxtapose how Connor and Patrick, when they were younger, how they participated and were always around the University of Iowa, and how they spoke glowingly about the University of Iowa, how they wanted to play for the University of Iowa, how they wanted to play for Fran McCaffrey. They immediately committed to the University of Iowa. Compare that with the son, the youngest son, and I just think that it's not the end-all, be-all, but I do think that it is a good representation of how the family was starting to feel about the University of Iowa. But of course, Fran McCaffrey was in a situation where he's older now. He was making good money at the University of Iowa, and of course, he decided to stay. So the bottom line is, I don't want to dwell on this point too long. The feeling was mutual. And Iowa fans had really, I've said this 100 times now, we're really starting to have this apathetic feeling towards the University of Iowa men's basketball. And so now there's hope. And Iowa fans, you should feel good about that. You should feel an optimism, a newfound spirit about the University of Iowa men's basketball. And that's one thing that I do want to give Beth Getz, aka Beth Gates, credit for. Yes, I was open to Fran McCaffrey staying one more season, but I was also open to him being let go. I was not entrenched either way. But at the end of the day, the decision was made, and I do want to give credit where credit is due, that Beth made a decision. It was not sufficient. It was not good enough from a variety of different angles. And she went out and got the coach, one of the top coaches, if not the top coach on the market, to reinvigorate the University of Iowa men's basketball. And so I do have to give credit there. Now, as far as Ben McCollum goes, time will tell his success, okay? And there's a lot of work to be done. I don't think the University of Iowa men's basketball is where it was when Fran McCaffrey took over. They were at the bottom of the barrel. Recruits didn't respect the University of Iowa. They didn't even know about the University of Iowa. At least now, yes, Iowa's lost a little bit of cachet the last 2 years, but I would say that the University of Iowa is still known as a solid basketball school due to the solid success that they have seen over the last 10 years. 10 to 15 years, especially with Keegan Murray being in the NBA and Chris Murray and Luka Garza having success. So I think recruits have more of a positive feeling towards the University of Iowa and more awareness of the University of Iowa than, say, when Fran McCaffrey took over, when they were completely at the bottom of the Big Ten. So that's good news. Yes, Fran McCaffrey gets the credit for those players, not Ben McCollum, but still, it is a positive that Ben McCollum will have in his first year. Now, what does and as far as what Iowa is getting with Ben McCollum, they're getting a slower pace of basketball, which is fine. I said in yesterday's video, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some teams have the skill and talent and players to play a more up-tempo play, but there's risk in doing that. You do tend to lack defensively because you have such a huge importance on the offensive end and constantly pushing it, constantly getting up and down. To me, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Whatever you do, just do it well. And if you're a team that slows it down, then you need to be a team that does make the most of your possessions, which Ben McCollum teams do. They take longer to shoot, but they have a higher points per possession than most teams do. So, that is that. Now, what does Ben McCollum need to do, right? And then, I forgot about this. Defensively, they were top 50 in defensive efficiency. His teams defend, and that is good. And Iowa needs a team that is willing to defend, to play tough, to play strong, to get after it, compete, which I'm not saying Fran McCaffrey teams didn't do, but they stopped doing down the stretch his final couple of years. What does Ben McCollum need to do immediately? Well, he needs to establish himself. He needs to hit the ground running. He needs to get his coaching staff together. I would completely be open to him hiring Matt Gatens, as Matt Gatens has familiarity with the University of Iowa. He has familiarity with the current players that are in the transfer portal. That's not the end-all, be-all why you would have him as an assistant. I think he's just a knowledgeable coach, and I think Matt Gatens has high upside and can potentially be a coaching candidate down the line. But I would definitely consider him as one of the assistant coaches. I have no evidence that that's going to happen, but I would consider it. Either way, he needs to get his coaching roster in shape. And if ultimately he feels completely comfortable with the guys he has in their ability to recruit, to work hard for him, then I'm okay with him not selecting Matt Gatens. I'm just saying that I would be open to him considering Matt Gatens as the holdover and connection to the previous Iowa regime. But the immediate thing that Ben McCollum needs to do is fill out this roster. I mean, Iowa basically doesn't have a roster right now. Pretty much if not all the scholarship guys, except for Carter Kingsbury, which of course, why would he leave his scholarship considering he was a former walk-on, have hit the transfer portal. And he needs to immediately decide which players from Drake he is going to target and he believes can play at the Big Ten level and can immediately assist him in year one. He needs to identify those players, which I think a lot of people already know one of the names. But unfortunately, I forgot. Let me get it pulled up here. And of course, he needs to immediately identify the former Iowa players that he thinks would be worth reaching out to and landing. Because here's the thing, guys. Of all the transfer portal guys, in theory, the guys that would be the most open to coming to Iowa would be guys that already played there. Now, there will be guys, it's kind of a double-edged sword. There will be guys that because they played at Iowa and because Fran McCaffrey left, they're gone. And they want nothing to do with Iowa any longer. But the guys that don't have that feeling, that don't have that animosity, those are probably the best guys to reach out to. Bennett Sturts for Drake, guard, 6'4". I'm pulling up his. What is a junior? That's what I was trying to find out there. There's some other guys. I would need to look up and down his roster, but primarily what you're looking for are guys that can either immediately bring the culture that you're looking for and looking to build at the University of Iowa, or you're bringing guys that you believe athletically can grow into Big Ten players or are immediate Big Ten caliber players. Hopefully, you would get both aspects, and that's another thing that he's going to have to immediately do is start instilling his culture from the top to the bottom, because once you have your culture built, it becomes hard to change, whether for the good or for the bad, whether it's a positive culture or a negative culture. And we saw that with Fran McCaffrey. By and large, Fran McCaffrey had a positive culture, but towards the end, it was very hard for him to change kind of the points of emphasis from the top to the bottom of the roster. Iowa needs to immediately try to hold on to the guys that are on the roster. I think it just came in my mind, the Miami transfer who's considered a 4-star. He was a high 3-star, 4-star out of high school from Minnesota, Isaiah Johnson-Arrigu, and he's considered a 4-star transfer portal target. When he transferred to Iowa, he needs to try and land him and secure him. I think Sadao Traore is still on the roster. So there's a few Iowa guys that are still on the roster. He needs to immediately try to hold on to them, because I think that the guys that are still there are worth holding on to. As far as Iowa guys that have hit the transfer portal, the names and moving on from the fact that he needs to start building his culture immediately and getting guys that he thinks can bring that culture forward as soon as possible. The guys that I think that played for Iowa that are guys that he can realistically land, I would say I do think Josh Dix is a guy that would be a huge get if he can get him to come back to the University of Iowa. I think that's going to be a tall order, considering Josh Dix is considered the best transfer portal target. But I do think he would be open to returning to Iowa. I think Price Sanford would be open to returning to Iowa. I think he'd be more open to returning to Iowa if Darren DeVries, a.k.a. Darian DeVries, had been selected or selected Iowa as their next head coach. But still, I think those two guys would be open. I do think Lajai Dembele would be open as well. I'm not as big on him returning. I don't think that that's the end-all, be-all if he returns. In fact, I kind of think it was dumb for him to hit the transfer portal, but I digress. I think Brock Harding and Owen Freeman are gone. Brock Harding has already listed a top 6. I think that they were really tied to playing for McCaffrey. Owen Freeman's gone. He's not going to be coming back to Iowa. There are reports that he was going to be gone even if Fran McCaffrey returned. So, I would never say never as far as this modern NIL landscape, and if Iowa can put together a good enough package, you never know. But I would not hold my breath on those two guys. I have to pull up Iowa's roster to see. And then the last thing that I really want to say is, what is the expectation for success? Well, in this day and age, guys, it is completely possible for, regardless of coaching changes, for a team to immediately be an NCAA tournament team in year one. You saw it with him at Drake. With the transfer portal, you can now immediately get your roster to the place that it needs to be to compete for an NCAA tournament appearance. So I'm not saying that that's what my expectation is or that that's what should be the expectation. I think that Ben should be given minimum 1 year's time where we give a ton of grace on the direction of this team. Now, obviously, that's within reason, but, with that said, because of the transfer portal, it is realistic to think that a program in year one of a new head coach can get things back to where it needs to be an NCAA tournament team. Chris Taggio is still on the roster. He has not hit that. So the guys that are still on the roster, Chris Taggio, which is good. That's good that he's still on the roster because I really like his upside. Sadao Traore, and Isaiah Johnson Arrigu. Guys that hit the transfer portal: Price Sanford, Riley Mulvey, Cooper Koch, aka Cooper Koch, Brock Harding, Owen Freeman, Josh Dix, Lajai Dembele are all gone. So, like I said, I think the guys that Iowa could land would be Josh Dix. I think they could land Lajai Dembele, but I don't think that's the end-all, be-all. I do think that they could land Cooper Koch again, a.k.a. Cooper Coach, a.k.a. Cooper Koch. Again, but you know, he had a lot of offers coming out of high school, Purdue, Indiana. He might want to go closer to home. He kind of had a rocky first year, but, because he had a rocky first year, he's probably not going to have the same pull for his services as he did coming out of high school. But I do think because of the Iowa connection from his dad that he would be able to return or willing to return. Same with Price Sanford. And so, yeah. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. This video went a little longer than I wanted, but that's what I am expecting. That's kind of my immediate takeaway from this being formally announced, just a little bit different than yesterday's video. Kind of what I think the expectations should be, what he needs to do immediately in hitting the ground running. The biggest thing, the two biggest things are going to be immediately getting his roster constructed and getting guys either from Drake or guys that were former Iowa players or guys that aren't linked to Iowa. Just getting guys onto the roster that are talented, that can immediately start contributing in year one. And of course, number two, building his culture and facilitating what he wants the University of Iowa to be and finding guys to do that. All right. Guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment. You guys know the drill. This is great news. I'm excited. You should be too. And I'll have you guys covered every step of the way here moving forward. Like I said, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and last but not least, DBAP. Don't be a pussy with all facts or feelings because your feelings just don't matter. Ben McCollum, Iowa, men's basketball, next head coach. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.